here.
We did it, Joe.
Here we go again.
Yes. What's up, PK?
Chilling, Ma. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Another stormy day in South Florida.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, it's storming out here, but hopefully FPL holds us up. You know what I mean?
That part. Look, I'm back in Charlotte. It is a beautiful day. So I'm
Lucky you.
definitely rubbing it in.
Lucky, lucky, lucky you. I love that for you. Man. First of all, as we start to welcome That Part Podcast family in there, Ma Duke's up in there. What's up, Mom?
Yes. Give us some energy in the comments. We see y'all. We love y'all. Come on now.
Kay Quinn, I see you. I'm actually broadcasting on Instagram for the first time. So this is going to be fun and cool. So
Yeah.
thank you, everyone from Instagram who's tapping in with us. We appreciate them. Also live on that Facebook as well. Yeah, and we're going to get this party started in just a bit. We got a very cool guest today. Hey, Kiki Lala. The coolest. Yeah, he is the coolest, But listen, welcome to That Part Podcast. I am your host, Papa Keith from 103.5 The Beat and founder of Just Vote Period, where we get our young people activated with democracy and getting them registered to vote. And my amazing co-host, the one and only, man, I messed this up because we were supposed to do our special. I was supposed to intro you. You supposed to intro me, but I didn't mess it
You
up.
could have kept it going. I was rolling with
it. Man, I just thought of it afterwards. Nonetheless, Janae Tate, she's the founder and owner of High-Low News, South Florida's hyper-local news network, and that's the only place I get my news from to find out what's going on in and around our community. She does entertainment as well. She does an amazing job. She covers the events physically and virtually, and I just absolutely love what she's doing, man. So big ups, Janae Tate, my amazing co-host.
Hey, thank you for that amazing introduction. PK, you do the best intros. I'm like, just handle it. Like you've been doing this for decades. Like it's the reason why. So I'm totally okay if you want to do all the live reads because there's no other intro like a PK intro.
I appreciate you. You're too kind. You're too kind. Well, listen, man, we ready to get this party started, man, because I think our timing. My mom is gonna be happy to hear this. Velveeta's gonna be. Both of our moms are gonna be happy to hear this. It's only God. Like
it had to be God.
Last week, randomly, we have a congresswoman that taps in and says she wants to be a part of the show. We didn't have any guests scheduled, and Sheila came on and man, she was just spitting exactly what the topic was for that day. And today, what makes it so amazing that our guests that we're having and that we already had scheduled prior, the topics that we're talking about happen to be hot button topics based on the big ugly ass bill that dropped, and just the things that are coming out of that bill that's going to be affecting, education and things that are very near and dear to us. So we're going to dive into all of that today, right, Janae?
Yes, we are. And our guest that we have today, if you're looking at the headline, if you looked at the description, you already know, is the Dr. Steve Gallen the third. So we just, like you said, it was divine order for us to schedule him. And then this drops. And now we'll have him here to be able to break those things down and explain to the community what that means and what are some next steps. So I'm just really, really excited to have him on. It's going to be a dope conversation.
Yeah, well, you ready to jump right into it?
Yeah, let's do
I'm
it.
ready, man. The most time we could get with this man is the best, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Steve Gallen III is the elected District 1 school board member for Miami-Dade County Public Schools and a lifelong educator with over 25 years of experience. He served as a teacher, principal, district administrator, and superintendent, and becoming the first Black Miami-Dade County public school alum to rise to superintendent via a national search. A proud FAMU graduate with advanced degrees from FIU, Dr. Gallen is widely recognized for turning around underperforming schools and advancing equity in education. He's also an award-winning author, national education consultant, and respected voice on improving urban education. Without further ado, welcome our esteemed guests, Dr. Gallen.
That part right there. That part. That part. Good evening. I would say I'm
Yep.
amongst friends, but I see you both as family. Your family in the fight, your family in the service, and as I say, growing up in Liberty City, real recognizes real. So I'm just
Mm.
glad to be here. For those who used to see me in the grocery store, see me in Dunkin' Donuts. I'm out of uniform, but this is who I am on a rainy night, as Papa Keith mentioned. But I'm so glad to be here as we not only navigate this storm through the climate, but we navigate the storms that are coming across this country that are affecting each and every one of us. So looking forward to a lively discussion. Um, Unscripted as always. Don't know what the topics are, but as I often say, let's go. Let's go.
That part. Janae, before we dive into the questions, I would love Dr. Gallen to give us a little bit of background, you know, on yourself and how did you get into the world of education? You know?
Mm.
Um, I've described myself as an educational purist. And what that means is I appreciate people who come into the field of education from different walks of life. But when I transitioned out of Miami Northwestern Senior High School to go to Florida A&M University, FAMU, I left Miami to become a teacher. So I majored in English education. I studied methods, English literature. Teaching was always in my passion, but quite frankly, education was always my passion. And I saw it, Papa Keith and Janae, as a form of redemptive service. My life growing up in Liberty City, I had many challenges, but education provided me a passport. I had outstanding educators at Miami Northwestern Senior High School that gave me a blueprint before Jay-Z did the blueprint on what it would take for me to, have a productive life. And that was predicated on service. So I left Northwestern to become a teacher. Graduated in 3 years, magna cum laude in English education, did the field study, did an internship at Rickards High School in Tallahassee. So I'm authentic. I'm authentic. Came back home at 20 years old, started teaching, understood that education was the passport to success and self-sufficiency. I was a young single father of 2 children and wanted to make some additional money. I knew that the more I earned would be based on what I learned. So I pursued my master's degree at FIU. Interesting story. I'll try to tell it as quickly as I can. Man planned and God laughs. Man planned and God laughs. I went to FIU to get my master's in English education because that would have been an additional $3,000 to my salary. But when I went to pursue a master's degree in English education, I feel, before we had the challenges and issues with DEI and all of the things that we see, that an unnamed professor at FIU North felt that I needed to take some prerequisite courses in English. My degree was in English, but I felt that he thought that maybe because I came from an HBCU, my intellectual ice wasn't cold enough. And I wanted to appeal that. So I never just took no for an answer. And as a part of my appeal process, I went to the South Campus and waited on the dean and waited on the dean and waited on the dean. But they had just come out of a meeting about the lack of representation of Blacks in the educational leadership program. And the gentleman that spoke with me said, I can't help you in the English department, but if you're interested in going into leadership, we can have a conversation. I'll fast forward. I went into leadership. I never got those $3,000 salary increase at the time, but because I didn't bet on the system and I bet on myself, I became the youngest assistant principal at the age of 23 years old. Instead of $3,000 increase, my salary went from $20,000 to $41,000. So I had a $20,000 increase because I bet on myself. Man playing, God laughs. So I continued that trajectory, became a principal at 26 years old at Holmes Elementary School, really understood the power of education, completed my doctorate, my earned doctorate, Did I say my earned doctorate?
Oh, you ain't got no AI doctorate? No AI over here?
At the age of 28, and after 3 years at Holmes Elementary School, went to Miami Northwestern Senior High School to become the principal, where I stayed 7 years. Then I went to the district, and then I became the first and only at the time Black to start their career in Dade County Public Schools to rise to the level of superintendent in New Jersey through a national search. What most people don't know, prior to that, you only had 2 Black superintendents, and you still only have 2 Black superintendents. One was Johnny Jones, but Johnny Jones was not a native of Miami. He didn't start his career here. And then you had Rudy Crew, which obviously he's from New York. But I was the first one that was homegrown. And now shout out to Dr. John Pace, who's now the second Black to start their career here, who's doing a phenomenal job in Henry County, Georgia, as a superintendent of schools. Came back home and man planned, God laughs, and answered the call to service. And in 2016, became the choice for change. And I inherited a school district in District 1 with the highest number of F schools, one school with 5 consecutive Fs, a district winning all the accolades and awards and achievements and swimming in success, while children in my community were drowning in failure. And I had to come in unapologetic. And in the first year, we eliminated the F schools. The second year, we eliminated D schools. And we've continued to move forward, knowing we still have work to do. So over 100 policy items later, great work that we've done and we continue to do with the support of so many stakeholders, because you can't do this work alone. Here we are serving our 3rd term as a school board member for District 1 of Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
Wow. Absolutely amazing.
That part.
I mean, listen, we can do a whole podcast just on your journey, sir. Amazing. Thank you for definitely sharing that with the audience. It means a lot. I like people to understand it didn't just arrive, you know, there was a lot of work and a lot of time that was put in for you to reach where you reach. So thank you for sharing that. Janae, you ready?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, this, that intro and you explaining like who you are in your journey, like think really sets us up for this next conversation, because, there's breaking news today, the Department of Education, all this stuff going on with the big, beautiful bill, air quote, in DC. And there's been massive cuts to funding for the U.S. Department of Education. And it's reported that Miami-Dade County will have a $45 million hole in funding. And that funding particularly helps underprivileged kids, migrant services, for migrant students, training for teachers, and so many other things. Dr. Gallant, I would like to know your thoughts on this funding cut and how it will affect vulnerable students in Miami-Dade County schools.
Great question. And before I express my thoughts, let me clarify some of the facts, because I do want us to be fact-based. It's not, there's not a nexus to the bill. I won't call it what they reference it as, with respect to the funding pause. So I want to clarify that. I don't want to establish the nexus between what they're actually deliberating over right now and that proposed pause of funding. That funding was already authorized by Congress. So we have to make a distinction and educate people, whether it's at the local, state, or federal level, that the legislative process is the body that controls the purse. That is where the power of the purse comes from. So this funding that I'm speaking of has already been authorized by Congress. So this was just to be received July 1st, which is the new fiscal year in schools. So that's separate and apart from what they may or may not be doing there. Currently, it's being described as a pause, and it's considered under further review. So pause until when? What is the criteria upon which it's being reviewed by the executive branch? So again, the legislative branch said, this is your money. We're allocating this. One portion of it, for example, was a competitive grant that the district applied for and won. And this money was authorized. So it is a pause, but if anybody who knows about education and about life, education and life continues to educate and life continues to keep life in. So in education, when we look at the end of the school year in June, teachers, principals, custodians, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, superintendents, board members, all stakeholders, parents are already starting to think about school shopping. What do I mean by that? We're starting to plan and move forward toward next year. So to pause a $45 million allocation and to even propose a $45 million haircut that's going to have a direct impact on students and families. I want to say that, students and families. This is not something that's an ambiguous allocation. It's not flexible funding. It's not something that we can go and buy this and buy that. This is money that has been earmarked for specific purposes. 5 specific purposes I want to point out. Migrant education, English language learners, funding for academic enrichment for the most fragile students, funding for post-secondary adult education programs for parents who are seeking to learn English. Okay? So if you start to see a pattern, and before and after school programming, those are the 5 categories, okay, that are identified as being on pause with the $45 million. So combined, what does that look like in real time? If we recognize, and I said today on Channel 10, every school will have a student in Dade County that is an English language learner. So maybe in Little Haiti, you may have 75%. Maybe in Hialeah, you will have 90% in a school. Maybe in Pinecrest, 1%, 2%. Miami Gardens, we're growing in terms of our diversity, 30, 40% in some schools. So every school will have a student that's an English language learner. And that student, pursuant to law, which came from the Meta Consent Decree. That's the LULAC lawsuit that was done decades ago, where they sued to say that our children who are coming into the country, here's the reversal, here's the irony of it. They sued, said our children who are coming into the country, many who are now adults, many who are now in leadership positions, came not speaking English. So the educational framework had to make provisions for that. It had to recognize that you're smart, you're intelligent, you can learn, but you have to learn a new language in a new country. And we're going to augment that through services and through supports, which require funding. So that's where you have the home language survey. When a student registers for a school, do you speak English? Yes or no? Is English spoken in your home? Yes or no? Based on your answer, we put you on a track to say you're ESOL level 1, ESOL level 2, the whole thing about exiting out of ESOL because you now have learned to speak English. That comes from teachers, supports, and services, and that is what's being impacted. So that's an example. Before and after school programming, where a parent is working 2 and 3 jobs. They drop the child off at 7, they get off at 7. So the school is that safety net. And sometimes parents don't have the resources to pay for that. But the school has to be the great equalizer, and we've always done that in public education. I believe has always been the final frontier of social justice. I can go into the other 3 categories, but I think you have the sense of it. But if you look at the 3 distinctions, the 3 key areas out of the 5 affect immigrant populations. Full stop. Immigrant populations, full stop. So what does that mean in Miami-Dade County? We're a majority minority community.
Exactly. Wow. So this seems to be an extension to the bravado of punishing immigrants, in America. This seems like an extension, but on an education level, and also an attack to low income, as you described, the after school programs and things that people need in order, if you work in certain jobs, you're going to, need that extra help with the after school programs. This seems like an attack specifically on those marginalized
children, communities, and families.
Yeah.
Full stop. Whether you're marginalized because you're poor, whether you're marginalized because you are an immigrant, whether you're marginalized because you don't speak English and you need some additional support as an adult, because remember, some of this funding is for adults as well.
Yeah.
If you go into North Miami, if you go into Hialeah adult education programs, they're bursting at the seams with adults.
Oh, wow.
People go to work during the day and they come because they want to learn. and they understand that they're in a new country. And those are some of the things that have helped to build not only this community, but build this nation. And I'm not in the business of calling people out, but if you look at some of the people in the highest positions of power, I submit that some of them were Esau students.
Yeah.
Okay? And they recognize that, and they know that, especially if they came through Miami-Dade County Public Schools. You know, before we had some of the, they talk about how the United States was welcoming to immigrants, and we provided all kind of support systems and safety nets, starting with the educational program.
The hypocrisy is real.
So that's where we are. I just wanted to clarify that. So that has nothing to do with what they're doing here. That has been already allocated. So that's why it's not, quote unquote, being eliminated. It's being put on pause, which that's been done before. And you've seen in many occasions, the courts have actually said, no, to hell with that, release that money.
Gotcha.
You don't have the authority because Congress has already authorized that money. But the Department of Education is a part of the executive branch. They do have the role and the responsibility of distribution.
Gotcha.
So if Janae drops off a check and tells me to give it to you, she's already written the check, but it's my job to give it to you. If I say, well, I don't want to hand it over to you, Janae said, well, I already gave him the money. The money's good. Now my role is to give it to you. And that's what we have the challenge right now with the pause while it's under further review.
Gotcha. So it's not really a cut, and it's a pause right now. That $45 million is a pause.
I try to remain optimistic, and I try to deal with facts and not emotion. So it's easy for me to gaslight and say, oh, they cut the money. No, it's a pause at this particular point, and it's something that's been allocated by Congress. How that's reconciled, not only in Miami-Dade County, but throughout the nation, because it's all across the country. Hopefully that's reconciled, and we just have to navigate through that. So we have elected officials at the federal level in Congress, and hopefully they speak up and they understand and advocate for the release and the disbursement of that funding, so that we can appropriately plan for our children and our families for the upcoming year.
Dr. Gallant, just from any of your insight, and I know you're connected with people on the federal level, do they have some type of timeline on like when this funding could be released?
This is it was scheduled to be released July 1st. So just imagine if you prepared to write a check and you think the money is coming on that date, and you look in your account and it's not there. So we have to just have to have a plan A and a plan B, and we've always been flexible and nimble and agile in education. That's what leadership requires us to be. But a $45 million haircut is significant. And again, it's going to have an impact if it doesn't come into fruition on the most vulnerable student and family populations, not only in Dade County, but across this country.
So right now, there aren't any immediate effects to the Miami-Dade school district at this time. Like there's no students or families being affected at this time. It's just more so like a waiting of the money. Because I'm trying to figure.
No, it is affecting,
like what's happening.
It affects our decision-making ability and our planning commitments. So I can't hire teacher A because do I hire or do I not hire? Do I now purchase this program? Do I purchase additional textbooks and softwares for student populations? Do I make commitments to identify staff, which is sometimes hard to find for my before and after school programming? Do I tell a parent, hey, we got this. Don't worry about this. Get the school closed, get other things, and we'll cover that too. But we got you for before and after school. Do we tell the families who want to learn English and navigate through our community and become productive citizens that we will have that class available in August for adult education? So our planning is affected because our planning is tied to revenue and it's tied to our ability to provide the resources, the staff, the equipment, the materials, and the services. Do we implement our strategy to identify? One of the portions of the program was a strategy that we looked at to hire teachers for understaffed and hard to staff schools. We have a teacher shortage. Anybody knows that? We have a teacher shortage in this country. And what education has been subjected to over the past several years post-pandemic, they pat us in the back. They celebrated us because we held it down during the pandemic. But, people got amnesia. And all of a sudden, education, public education specifically, which educates the most children in this nation, 90% of the students in this country are educated in public schools, full stop.
Wow.
So when we get into this debate about private schools and other things of that nature, 90% of the student population in the nation and the world felt the power, the purpose, and the presence of public schools during the pandemic. The schools didn't. That's why they fought like hell to make sure schools opened. They needed schools open because parents had to work, children had to be educated, and we had to provide that level of stability and continuity for society. And it's all built around education, I believe. So those things affect our ability to plan. We don't have specific information as it relates to the why. I see somebody in the chat ask, what's the purpose? We don't know. We've been notified of the pause. It's under review. So we don't know what the criteria is. So that level of ambiguity and that level of uncertainty is contrary to good planning for our children and for our community.
All right. Appreciate you, Dr. Galen. We're going to go on to the next one. There's been, this kind of ties in a bit, but there's been a growing attack on diversity, equity and inclusion, DEI efforts in education as well, especially around teaching Black history, queer history, and culturally responsive curriculums. How is Miami-Dade navigating these pressures?
We follow the law. I would say fortunately, and I call balls and strikes. I don't gaslight on the narratives without giving people the facts. That's why it would have been politically convenient for me to say, oh yeah, the bill that they're passing is cutting education. But part of me being on this platform is to separate fact from fiction. So in Florida, we have a law that stipulates African-American history must be taught. Full stop. So that's a non-negotiable. One of the major issues that we faced and we had to confront was this notion, which, to be fair, a notion that there was a reported benefit to slavery. And that was at one line that was included, and we challenged that, and obviously that was addressed. But the curriculum as an educator, as a lifelong educator, is pretty solid. You had a line, and you had people, instead of owning it, they tried to defend that one line. But we, on the other hand, don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So in Florida, we have an obligation to teach African-American history. The next iteration, you asked me about LGBT queer history. That is something that's a different dynamic. That's not embedded in law. So let me say those two things are not embedded in law. We initially had some of the options of adopting textbooks for health education, which deals with what you call puberty, abstinence, all of those different things that we learned as a single father who raised a daughter, and I have a young daughter. I rely on science when those topics come up. That may be a topic that's not comfortable for a parent, and they don't want to get into the emotions, but they want to talk about what science says, and that's important in health education. So at one point, the school districts had the option to make that selection. The state now makes that decision in terms of those books. And a couple of years ago, we rejected it. And then a couple of days later, we came back and we reversed our decision and approved it because it was very contentious. The key phrase when you start talking about sex and related topics is age appropriateness. So there is something to be said as a parent. When we have to square parental rights, which is not a bad thing. So I don't want anybody to, they're all about parental rights. You're damn right. I'm a parent. I want my rights as a parent. But I also have to be engaged as a parent. I have to sign those forms. I have to know what's being taught. And our school system provides notification of parents for that purpose. But I will say, if my child is in the second grade, there are certain things I may not want my child exposed to. So this whole idea of age appropriateness is really the context under which many of those topics are dealt with. Last but not least, you do have freedom, academic freedom in some cases, but you have freedom of expression on the part of students. So students can have clubs, they can have organizations, they can express themselves. But it's an ongoing debate. But as it relates to how we navigate that, number one, by following the law. Number two, by engaging parents in that particular process. And number three, making sound educational decisions with competent, capable, and committed teachers.
Thank you.
See how Doc we breaking it down. So thank you so much for sharing that, and also to explaining like the nuances of like the law and what it is actually, because sometimes in the headlines and on blogs it gets a little hazy. So I'm glad you broke that down, like what's law and what is, you know, not law, and things, other things like that. So thank you for that. My next question kind of deals with some other things that have been in the headlines, and I also saw you talking about this on stories when it comes to ICE and wanting access to schools to detain undocumented students or their family members. And we've seen public universities like USF and University of Florida cooperate with ICE on this. What's your response to that? And where does the school board stand on keeping schools safe spaces for all children?
Yeah, I've been unapologetic. I'm consistent in my messaging. Our schools are safe spaces for our children. We're educators of children. We're not agents of ICE. We're educators of children. We're not agents of ICE. That was a quote. That was a bar, Janae. I gave that bar a while ago, and they ran with that. We're educators of children. We're not agents of ICE. That made one of the headlines. But I meant that, and I stand on that. That being said, we as a governmental entity have an obligation, as we always have, to cooperate with law enforcement. We do that all of the time. If it's done in decency and in order and pursuant to a court order, no pun intended, we cooperate. But we've not had any instances in which our children were the subject of retrieval, of inquiry, or things of that nature. We don't release records. We have a law that we follow. That's called FERPA, Family Educational Rights to Privacy Act. Anytime you see that language that says Act, ACT, that's a law. So FERPA protects student records. So we can't just release student records unless there's a court order, unless there's a subpoena. So there's no framework in which we're navigating the retrieval of kids, that we're releasing records of families. So our families and our children are safe in our schools. Obviously, there has been an elevated strategy to address the immigrant issue, whether it's at Home Depot, whether it's in parking lots, at the courthouse. And fortunately, we've not had an instance in a school or a school area, but, you know, we've been fortunate thus far. There have been some reports in other places around the country. Some of those reports, I must say, to be fair, have been exaggerated. So there's not been an issue where ICE has gone into a school, knocked on the third grade classroom and say, Jose or Francis, come here, let's go. No, that's not happening in schools that I'm aware of around the country. Some of those issues in terms of whether a parent was followed to a school and they accosted the parent in a parking lot, you know, those things could happen. But in terms of our schools, we represent those as safe spaces. But again, we do have an obligation to cooperate with law enforcement, as we would with Miami-Dade, as we would with the city of Miami, as we would with Opelika, Miami Gardens, Pinecrest, North Miami Beach, North Miami. If they're involved in appropriate law enforcement activities, we cooperate as a partner pursuant to law.
Makes sense. This next question, I actually gonna put a little extra on it because it's something that's it's something that's been on my mind for a bit too. So the first part of it is, what areas of public education do you think need urgent policy intervention, especially for Black and brown students in underserved communities? And I want to also tie that into how you feel about the educational vouchers.
Okay. The answer to the first part of your question is relative. And if I can, that part, you know, I'm an educator, so, you know, bear with me. Education. So if you say to me, my answer as the superintendent in New Jersey will be different than my answer as a superintendent or a board member in Florida. Because number one, the primary driver of one's capacity to do the work is revenue. Revenue provides resources. So if I'm getting $18,000 per student in New Jersey, I don't have a revenue issue. I have a cost of living issue. It's challenging, but Miami is right there, Florida. But if I'm getting $9,000 in Florida, which we rank at number 48, 49 in educational funding, that's a problem. So I have to frame that for you. It's not a blanket statement across the country, because some places, some states fund education much more stronger than we do in the state of Florida, full stop. Has the state of Florida made incremental gains? Yes, but we're so far behind. So the number one thing I would say is to make sure that we provide equitable funding. And this whole issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion, people get it twisted. And I just have to say this. DEI, the biggest beneficiary of DEI is not Black folk. The biggest beneficiary of DEI are white women, okay? So we have fallen into this trap. We've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, and led astray. In some cases, I don't take the bait. So when they're saying DEI, I look around, you ain't talking about me.
Exactly.
You know?
Thank you.
Oh my God.
We've
PK says
allowed,
that all the time.
we've allowed people to establish a nexus of DEI meaning Black. It does not mean Black. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a diverse nation. We believe in equity, and we think that we should be an inclusive space. Let me talk about equity. So in funding, equity is really key, because Janae may not need as much money as you to be taught. I may not need as much money as you to be taught, because we have different needs. So equity is something that's designed to close the gap. So just because you gave Janae $100, I might need 200. You know what I mean? You might need 300. Somebody else might need 500. If a kid, is a special needs kid, they need additional funding. If a child didn't have early childhood education because his or her parents had to work and somebody babysitted them but didn't put a book in their hand, we know the study in which some children read X amount of words by the time they're 5 versus other children. It's about exposure and access. So depriving certain populations of that exposure and that access puts those children further behind. So we need to accelerate them. So you're talking about enriching their education experience. They need more after school. They need more intervention. They need more resources. They need more support at home. And we have to provide that to them, because one size does not fit all. So funding will be the number one proposition. Secondly, I want to qualify that. We often think very often that the dismantling of public education, specifically in the funding area, is something that's going to hit Black communities, brown communities. The largest beneficiary of flexible and enhanced funding, i.e. Title I, i.e. food stamps, SNAP, and things of that nature, are rural communities. Rural communities. So when you start looking at the fact that in this funding pause, it wasn't for Title I. No, Title I is an economic indicator. Don't care if you're white, Black, blue, green, based on your economic status. So if you're talking about doing something that's going to decimate poor families and poor children, okay, you think you come to the inner cities, we gonna take that here and have to keep it moving. But the rural communities, they got big problems. And where are a majority of those rural communities? What is the demographic in predominant rural communities? Say less. So they understand that. So funding is an issue. So equity. And Title I is something that provided for that. Special needs provides for that. IDEA, individualized, that's Educational Act. Students with disabilities, that's an act, that's a law. These are functions of law. So funding. Your second question was?
The vouchers.
Vouchers. Vouchers is about parental choice. I think if we're going to give vouchers out, we need to have the same accountability standards. That's me. And I have to make the distinction. People say, charter schools are taking out children. Charter schools are public schools. So let me just say that. Charter schools are public schools. They have to have certified teachers. They have to take the same state exams that we do. Private schools on the other end is a different story. And the voucher system in the state of Florida is on 2.0. It's on steroids, because you went from what was called the McKay Scholarship, which I was okay with that. That's a voucher program. You know what that says? a student has a special need and the public school system can't meet that need, that parent will get a voucher to take them to a specialized center. We get that. Okay. Then you had a voucher system that was for low-income families, because some children go to private schools who can afford it. So if a parent wants to make that choice for their children, the economics should not be the barrier. Okay, that's a parent's choice. Where they went from 0 to 100 was on the universal vouchers. If I'm a multimillionaire that had 5 children and I was paying for my children to go to a private school at $50,000 a pop anyway, now you're going to take $10,000 from the public school system funding to give to that parent who was going to do it anyway. So the economics of it wasn't contemplated. That's where I do have a problem. So the economics of it, where it's not based on financial need, and I have an issue relative to the accountability standards that they're not subjected to.
Von
Great
Powell
answer.
actually made that comment in the comments, and they said, the income gap with the vouchers, and that was an issue for them as well. So I'm so glad that you broke that down, because a lot of people, I don't think, understand that.
And then you have the other issue that's still to be debated, is the conflation of religious-based schools. So you have that issue. That's an issue. So if I choose to utilize a public dollars for a religious-based education, does that run afoul of the separation between church and state? So I did teach school law for about 15 years, so I'm familiar with some of that. So that's still being debated in some spaces, and those are the 3 constructs that I speak on vouchers. But at the end of the day, it's a parent choice. But I do think public education still should represent the final frontier for social and economic justice. Okay, because if not, we're going to have a tale of 2 cities, and we're going to go back to a desegregated school system, whether it's de facto or de jure. That's what we're going to see, and that's where we start to have a segregated community based on economics.
Thank you for breaking that down, Dr. Gallen.
Yeah.
I have a question about doing business with government, and specifically Miami-Dade County Public Schools. And I remember covering your race when you ran for office the first time for school board, and something that was coming up a lot through different community groups, chambers, and business groups was the rate at which Miami-Dade County Public Schools does business with Black-owned firms. Can you speak to the progress that has been made and what you like to see more of?
Yes. So the Miami-Dade County Public Schools was in a very bold, unique position, and I must give credit where it's due. They took a courageous step in embracing what is called a disparity study. They recognized at the time that there was a delta, there was a gap, there was a disparity, no pun intended, between the economic opportunities provided to certain groups of people in this community. So it wasn't just Blacks, it was veterans, it was women-owned businesses, small local businesses, and yes, African Americans were at the bottom of the access and opportunity totem pole. So the disparity study identified that and say, here are where the disparities exist. Now we're going to develop strategies, and we're going to develop programs to try to close that gap. So at the time, let's say if Blacks were getting 5% of the contracts, we need to set that bar so we can monitor it on an annual basis and try to get it up to at least be on par with the demographics of the community. And we're not there. We're not there. Have we made progress? Absolutely. Do we face challenges moving forward? Absolutely. Because where you have a climate in which diversity, equity, inclusion, which is reflected in our disparity study and related strategies, those things are obviously stymied. But we have made some progress in that regard. One of the challenges we continue to have had are people being ready, willing, and able to assume contracts, whether you're a minority, whether you're a small or local business, and you have to come prepared. They can talk DI all they want to, but I'm certified, I'm bona fide, I have the degrees, I had the experience, I'm qualified to do the job. I can read, I can write, I can compute, I will show up to work on time, my word is my bond. some of those hard and soft skills. We have to make sure that we don't just walk in the door and want to pass because of the color of our skin or our gender. We have to be qualified. And I do believe in a meritocracy. In many cases, when we get an opportunity, we are not only representing our firm, we're not only representing our family, we're representing those that come behind us. I never forget a gentleman who I spoke today. I won't call his name. If he was watching this, he would know what I'm talking about. About 30 years ago or so, he said to me, he not grabbed me because we went to school together, went to FAMU together. He's an Omega, I'm a Kappa, and I know him very well. Good guy, educator. And when I got promoted as a young principal, I remember him saying, man, you better not, listen, you better not mess up. You doing this for all of us. You doing this for all of us. And I knew that because the moment we mess up, it ruins it for everybody. I give that analogy as it relates to business. You know how many businesses go in and out of business, have problems all the time. But the moment that some of us who have been given a leg up and giving an opportunity based on points or based on a system or based on a strategy, the moment we mess up, it's blown up. And it's like, I told you so. So we have to work extra hard. What's new? What's new? What's new? We've known that over 400 years. Yeah. And they didn't give us our 40 acres and a mule, but we still had to keep it moving. So we've always been people who understood that we were always behind an 8 ball. People ask me why I got a doctorate. I didn't need a doctorate to be a principal. I got a doctorate because I felt that one day somebody was going to demand that I had it. And we've had multiple people come in, become a superintendent without a doctorate. But they didn't look like me. But the moment I walked through the door, we would love to hire you, but you have a doctorate. Got that. You needed to be a principal. Been that. So we're looking at the hypocrisy across the board. And I don't want to get off topic, but I know I'm there. The hypocrisy about DEI, and it's something that runs counter to people being qualified. When we look at some of the qualifications of people in different places and spaces, they're unqualified, uniquely, patently unqualified for the positions they hold. Full stop. And all I'll say is, I don't care who you are, what your name is, put your resume on the table. Let's run it. Show me your Vita. Let's run it. Put up a transcript. Let's run it. Give me your experiences. Let's run it. But that spirit of entitlement and that spirit of being able to step over people, that's where we are. But from a business standpoint, Janae, to answer your question, systems were in place. We are preparing to sunset those because they run on 5-year cycles. And we're what, 2010? We're almost 15, 20 years in, but we have work to do. A lot of it was predicated at the time on the general obligation bond, which I did a number of policy items to expand accountability on that. And sometimes I want to say this, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. We had some firms that, had the contract, but weren't looking out for us. Everybody know the story of me walking onto a school site about 7 years ago. And I count 1, I count 2, I count 3, I count 4, I count 10, I count 15, I count 20, 25 people working on the site. Not one looked like me, not one was from this community. And this was a Black firm. Ooh. In our community. So those are the kinds of things, but that's that administrator of me as a board member. What gets monitored gets done. What prompted me to walk out to the site in my district? And I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. All I did, if anybody wants to go back to the receipts, I simply posted and say, look at this. I remember. Called me, the media called me. What are you talking about? A picture is worth of what? 1,000 words. And before we started saying less, I had to say less. But the superintendent at the time, they responded to that because, again, you had strategies, you had programs in place. So you had a firm, Black head, you had Black over the department, but some of those things weren't being monitored. So
there you go. Well, we gonna kind of ride that wave a little bit.
That's right.
Wait, I wanted to know the rate at which the school board is doing. Sorry to cut you off, PK, but I just wanted to know, just give people like a numbers or a picture. What rate are they doing now? It
depends on what area. If you want to give it an average, we're at about 12 or 13%. We still got a ways to go. No, that's not a wow. We represent from 5, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Wow.
Yeah, I agree. We improve, but it's different areas. And remember, a lot of it started out with construction. So the disparity study specifically looked at the construction. But now we went into disparity 2, which is procurement. That's for goods and services. But again, all of those are being sunsetted. But if you say, while at 12%, which we represent about 24, 25% of the population, the math doesn't math in many cases. The math doesn't math. And I'm getting a little elevated. Why? Because I can give you that number where we represent 24% of the population, but we were getting 12 or 13% of the contracts. But we represent 24% of the population, but we were representing 50% of the kids getting suspended and arrested. The math doesn't math.
That part.
Janae,
before we go into
I did a board item, on that too. Dr. Bendross
and your colleague,
school board
member Mendenhall says she remembers.
Yes, and she was a co-sponsor. She was right there in the paint, as she always is. Shout out to the Honorable Dr. Dorothy Bendross Mendenhall. She has been my champion for children, for this community. If you don't believe it, my first book I wrote about it, because I took some of her practices at Holmes Elementary School. This whole thing about parental involvement, she created a lot of that, amongst a lot of other things, mentoring, all of those things, bringing Black men into schools. Shout out to Dorothy Bendross Mendenhall. She was a trailblazer. And again, I wrote about it in my first book, some of the things that she was doing about holding parents accountable, but giving them the tools that they need to be successful, not only in school, but in life. She's taken some parents who didn't have high school diplomas, who now have doctorate degrees. She's taken parents who were unemployed, who became high-level administrators in the Miami-Dade County Public Schools and elsewhere.
Yeah, man, I second that. Want to show her a lot of love. She's an amazing soul, very intentional, like yourself, Dr. Gallen. And we're, the community's lucky to have the both of you.
And I want to say my last point. A verse came to me, and there's a song. Don't ask me what the song is. Being on that board, for me, Dr. Dorothy Bendross Mendenhall is so necessary.
So necessary. Yes. We got to have her on. Dr. Mendenhall, let us know.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. Well, we're going
to... I cut you off a few times, PK. Did you have a question?
Yeah. I was going to get into, before the school board, Dr. Gallen, when you were principal at Miami Northwestern Senior High, a role that many in the community still remember you for. Recently, a video of you connecting with the class of 2005 went viral. What does it mean to you to still have an impact like that nearly 20 years later?
Nearly? More than. It's been more than 20 years. Believe it or not, it seems like yesterday, and the way that I ran on that video, that was not a stunt man, that was me. So before I say that, to God be the glory, first and foremost, for a young man who graduated from Northwestern, from Liberty City, the youngest of six, the only one to go to college. My brothers went to prison. My parents divorced. I was a teenage father, wasn't always on the straight and narrow. And for me to have been blessed to come back to the same community and to be of service, as I told you early on, what prompted me to go into education was to pay it back, to give back what Mr. Peavy gave to me, even if it was a couple of licks with that paddle, to give back to what Dr. Charles Harfield gave it to me. Even though he never gave me above a C in class, he showed me what it was to be a smart, intelligent, and articulate and well-dressed Black man. Even if it was to pay what Dr. George Coates gave me, a very cerebral, pragmatic, people person leader. And so many people, and I don't want to leave some of the queens I've had, from Miss Batiste to the late Miss Wright to Miss Opet, so many help put me on the trajectory. And I just brought that energy to the principalship. I was 28 years old, so I was real young at the time, and I said failure was not an option. I had 3,200 kids at the time at Northwestern, 3,200. And for 7 years, we did the work. We faced challenges. We're an F school during that time, but if you look at some of the schools that had higher grades now, we had higher proficiency rates in reading and math because the criteria was different. We didn't have extra points on which to have our letter grade enhanced. We had to go strictly on proficiency, and that's fine. But I knew my kids by name. I was at an event just the other day, ironically, and shout out to the brother, but definitely Miss McNeil. I was on a panel, and the guy walked up to me and said, You may not know a lady named Miss McNair. She saw the flyer and she said that tell you hello. You may not remember her, but she's my mother-in-law. And I said, yeah, I know Miss McNair. I was the AP at Arcola Lake. Her daughter's name is Amber McNair. And he freaked out. That was almost 30 years ago. But I always had those relationships with the kids and held them accountable, let them know anything was possible. No excuses, just results. The world wasn't going to give you anything. I know sometimes lunch is free at schools, but in life, there is no free lunch. You're not entitled to anything you're not willing to work, sweat, and struggle for. We held teachers to a higher standard, but that standard was able to be achieved because of what we did. I was there for arrival. I was there for lunch break. I visited classrooms. I did dismissal. I broke up fights. I chased kids.
As we saw in the video, and you still got it.
Pick up trash. So leadership is not the position you hold, it's what you reflect and what you do. And fortunately, I come from an era when I mentioned Dr. Dorothy Bendross-Mendengal and Dr. Stinson and the late Mr. Gore and so many people that came before me. Shirley Chatine was my mentor principal. I come from an era, Cecilia Hunter, of people who were servant leaders. We understood that the position was about service. It wasn't about self. If we can teach a class on that to upcoming leaders and some leaders now, that is not about you. And so having that impact on students and what they gave me for those 7 years, and I say it all the time, my 7 years at Northwestern was the best 7 years of my entire career as an educator.
Wow.
There's never been a better 7 years. That's my best experience as an educator was my time at Miami Northwestern Senior High School, because I was able to see the difference we made in the learning and in the lives of children. Coming in ninth grade and seeing them through graduation, whether it took them 4 years or 5 years, or whether they graduated magna cum laude, or thank you, Lord. We got them through. You had kids with T-shirts writing this last weekend say, I didn't graduate from the West because Dr. Gallen kicked me out, but that was the best thing he did for me.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I mean? I got to give a shout out. It's ironic. I crave Van Dyke. I didn't know this, and he's a humble shout out to I Crave. I know they're in the city. I don't get down there as much because I really support the Black businesses. But I Crave can't make this stuff up. I don't like to make up stuff. I'm telling you the truth. I was having lunch at the restaurant, and he walked over to me, and he's a humble guy. They're doing great work, not only in the restaurant, but what they do for the community. And he came to me, and he said, Dr. Gallen, you don't remember this. You put me out. But then I came back and asked you to give me another chance. And you know what, Dr. Gallen? You did. And I graduated and I did well. He said, but you putting me out woke me up. I said, yeah, I put him out. Well, I'll go make them home visits. If I go knock on the door and it says Northwestern address, if you don't live there, you might wind up at Central Homestead of Carol City. I don't know where you're going, but you got to get the hell out of here. If you ain't here for school business, you ain't got no business here. That's what I used to say. But my students understood that. You know what I mean? And even if I gave you 10 days, it was rare that a kid did 10 days. Go home, chill out. We're going to come back and we're going to solve this. The most difficult part, Janae, in conflicts was the young ladies. I love conflicts. Guys get it over with. They're done with it. And at the time, I had Scott Projects, Lincoln Field, The Village. All of that. But we made it work. We made it work. So I could go on and on. I wrote a book about it. Whole book about Northwestern experience, when morning comes, moments of struggle, strength, and salvation. And it was a great experience, and it's something that really helped to shape me into the person and educator and servant that I am today.
Wow. Man, I love it. And I always tell you, and I joke around, I'm like, they love you and the Miami Northwestern community from that viral video, like for them to come back and say, Doc, can you do this? And even I was at West Fest this weekend seeing your picture on T-shirts, and like you are really like the Jay-Z, Michael Jackson of Miami Northwestern. Like,
they called Castivia first, my daughter. They called Castivia, and Castivia, they asked, well, do you think your daddy will? And she said, long as my daddy ain't doing nothing corny, he ain't dancing, he ain't doing all that. And so when they talked to me about it, I said, okay, I'll do it, but I have to write the treatment. So shout out to the writer. I wrote the whole treatment,
Wow.
I wrote that whole everything you saw. I wrote it. There was a few ad-libbing. The young man right there, when he turned around and he said, "Doc, are you serious?" We did that on the second take. I said, "Okay, when I go over the next time and you run back, I want you to turn around and say, 'Doc, are you serious?' when I come across the gate." So I didn't. Now this what I didn't write. Whatever he said. Shout out to Liberty City G. I wasn't there. He ad-lib on that, But when he said, "Doc, as fast as you know what," but it was a great experience. We had about 800,000 views combined
More than
all
that, I
across the
think,
country.
Doc.
Yeah, people,
I
but
think y'all
on
hit a
all
million.
platforms, but it's something that, is nostalgic. Love my students, love my community, love education.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. That's amazing. And you got people in the comments, they saying how much they love you. Of course. I knew, look, you put something with Dr. Gallen on, they coming. And they coming to support and they coming with love. And honestly, this leads us to our next question. And let us know how we are on time. And I think this is our last question. But I wanted to ask you about legacy. And looking back, what do you hope your legacy will be, not just as an educator, but as someone who's fought for equity and excellence in Miami-Dade public schools?
We use that word so loosely nowadays in terms of fight, but that is something I want my legacy to reflect, is that I'm someone that fought for what was right, and I call balls and strikes. I don't capitulate to the popular narrative at the moment. That's why I can say, when somebody say, "Well, this person," whoa, that might sound good. It might sound a good bar, but it doesn't reflect facts. I want my legacy to be someone who was unapologetic, unafraid, and one who maintains strength and humility at the same time. And I think that's a difficult balance for many of us. You can be humble, but also be strong. And that's something you have to learn over time. And you learn it through lived experiences. You're not going to learn that in a textbook, because life will humble you. I've had a lot of humbling experiences in my life, and I know what it feels like to go through certain things, and my lived experiences provided me a testimony because I've been tested. So I want my legacy as someone who, at the end of the day, if you're on the right side of the issue, if you're on the wrong side of the issue, but if I'm with you, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight with you. We're going to fight smart. We're going to fight to win. I don't believe in performances. And again, that's something I want my legacy to reflect. And if I had to sum it up for young people coming behind me, I like to say this phrase: it's cool to be smart. It's cool to be smart. We came up in an era where, at times being smart, going to school wasn't cool, but no, that is cool. You could go to school and you could still be cool. You could be an intellectual and still have swag. You can speak the King's English and still listen to Jay-Z. You understand what I'm saying? You can wear tailored suits and still rock Timbs. I had on Timbs today, Janae. So it's cool to be smart, and you can stand in your authentic self. And as J. Cole said, love yours, love your life. And that's what you want to teach to young people, and let that legacy be. I'm a person who, assume my responsibilities. And at the end of the day, I was a man. And last but not least on that topic, because when I'm no longer a principal, when I'm no longer an assistant principal, I'm no longer called superintendent, college professor, district administrator, school board member, I'm going to be remembered as a person who was a father to my children. And that's the most important thing to me, because at the end of the day, with all of those titles, I'm always going to be Papa, I'm always going to be Daddy. And I think that's something we have to do. If we're going to shape our community, if we're going to improve this nation, we have to start by doing that in our homes. We're not always going to get it right, but we have to be there for our children, love our children. And the Bible says, teach them in the way that they should go. And, when they get older, they will not depart from it. So I just want to stand on that kind of business as a father first, and as a community advocate, afterwards.
Wow. I just got to say, just speaking to one of our top educators here in South Florida, in the world, really, Dr. Gallen. You know, I have to admit that it's really educators who have shaped so many of us, whether a lot of people want to admit it or not. I can speak for myself. My mother's watching this, so I'm definitely ain't BSing. But it's always been a few educators who kind of like saw something in me. You know, they didn't just see me as a hyperactive kid. They just didn't, you know, they didn't see the negative. They saw something special in me, and they took the time to pour into me, or to let me know, or to take that and put it in a direction where you know, it can work for me. And even to any success that I have now or moving forward, I can always go back to an educator, you know, who really poured into me, that allowed me to do what I'm able to do today, man. So, you know, just with that being said,
and you know, and to a point, I have to say this because I don't ever want anybody to get it misconstrued. You know, a pure educator who cares about children is one who cares about humanity. And it's not always about being a Black educator educating Black children, because one of the most powerful, influential educators in my life in ninth grade was a white male from the East Coast named Joseph Walpole. He was the man that facilitated the book Man, Child in the Promised Land being put in my hand. He's the one saw something in me. He's the one say, test him for the academic achievement program because he's bright. I have him in my basic ninth grade English class, but this kid is something special. It was Mr. Walpole, a white man, who saw me through that. It was Dr. Peter Sistone, a white male at FIU, who I met and who talked to me when I was appealing my rejection out of the English class. And he put me through a program for a master's degree. He put me through the program for my doctorate degree. He was my advisor. And he put me on when I earned both to be a college professor to many of the educators that we see in our district right now and across this country. So it's about people who care about humanity, no matter what the color of your skin is. Because I said again, all skin folk ain't kin folk. It's about that spirit of humanity, and that's what we have to continue to embrace, and we have to continue to speak on, no matter what our lot in life is.
that part.
Love it, love it, love it. I mean, I want to throw this out there. I wouldn't be me if I didn't, because I see this in the comment section, and it brings me to a question that I want to ask. Somebody said Dr. Gallen needs to run for mayor. He believes in the community. I know you're terming out, Dr. Gallen. What's next for you?
Well, let's separate fact from fiction. I just got reelected. I'm not even into a year of my third term, so I have a 4-year term now. I have the option of another 4-year term. So in 2008, I can run again. That would be my final term because now school board has term limits. Whatever it is, I want to serve. But as I said before, man playing, God laughs. I went to FIU to try to fight to get in an English class to get $3,000. God had another plan. He got me to $20,000 and put me on the trajectory of becoming an educational leader. I had a plan thinking I was going to be a superintendent and bounce around the country being a superintendent. I failed, I fought, and I rose again. And God brought me back home to be of service to this particular community. Man playing, God laughs. So I have a plan right now to be the best board member and best advocate over the next 3.5, almost 4 years of this term. I'll contemplate the subsequent term that's available to me. But again, we have a lot of game to be played. I am committed to serving this community. And again, stay tuned.
Hey, mic drop.
There's a statement. There's two iterations of this, Janae and Papa. A person who's afraid to lose their job won't effectively do their job. And a person who's looking to the next job won't do effectively the present job. So, I can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. And I do play chess, not checkers. But right now, I want to be focused on my student of the month next year coming up. I want to celebrate my kids, my families, my Black History Month showcase. I want to visit schools. I want to continue to elevate educational and economic opportunities for the Miami-Dade County Public Schools in District 1, but we advocate for children from Florida City to County Line Road. I want to continue to serve alongside my colleagues and look to the left and look to the right, wherever we end up, and see Dr. Dorothy Bendross-Mendengal right there smiling at me, calling me Stevie, knowing that we're here. And we're not here with the eyes, we're here with the heart. So, that's what next 3.5, 4 years is going to represent to me. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But service is the rent we pay for living. So I got to continue to pay rent. And I don't mean literal rent on this earth, because I can pay my rent. I can pay all my stuff. But I got to pay the rent back to God and pay it forward for the blessings, the grace, the mercy, and the opportunities that he's given to me and my family. And all of that, Papa Key, came through education. Education has been good to me, spiritually, morally, and financially. Because they can take all this other stuff, but they can't take my education, and they can't take my experiences. And they can't take my work ethic and my commitment and my courage.
That's what's up.
A round of applause in the comment section, please, because this is the Dr. Steve Gallen. Oh my gosh, like this interview, probably one of the best. I would almost say the best interview we've had. Like just the bars that, like, I'm learning. Like, did you feel like you were learning?
Absolutely, absolutely. Just captivated, and just the way how he's breaking things down. And I know I'm talking about him like he's not right there in front of me.
I know, but it's just like
just the way he was breaking things down, and because we normally do this after the guest leave, but the way he broke things down, and just the passion, it's just inspiring. It just makes. I hope it inspires others who will watch this, and that's the beauty of these, YouTube stuff that we're doing. Even if years to come, people are able to, to tap in and hear the story of Dr. Steve Gallen, man. It's very inspirational.
wow, look at this.
Very.
Your legacy. Somebody got a doctorate degree because of you. Like that's legacy right there.
Shout out. Somebody just said they went and got their doctorate in education because of me. Bless you, brother. Legacy is something that, true legacy. Shout out to Patricia Barksdale. She was the board president when I was a superintendent in Plainfield. And we talked about what legacy is. Legacy is when your work continues long after you're gone. I did a lot of things in New Jersey. One of the programs I started was a program for administrators to get their doctorate degree. I don't know how many millionaires I may have made, can't count them, but I can count the number of people that I helped to become a doctor of education, a doctor of philosophy. And it's about you having the willingness to plant trees, to plant seeds that will grow trees that will bear fruit from which you will never eat. So I'm just going to continue to plant seeds. I don't know who that was on the screen that said that, but that person just said that. God bless you, brother. I don't offhand, but when somebody says, I'm here because of something you did, something you said that inspired me. That's what leadership is about. It's about service. It's about elevation, and not elevating yourself, elevating others. And you know what I mean? It's about elevating others. I came into the game who I am.
Ramon Davis, class of 2004.
Oh, that's my man. That's one of my students. That's right. One of my students. He got his doctorate. Congratulations. He just got his doctorate. So proud of him. He's doing great work in education too. Great work. He got it out the mud too, from Liberty City, one of our own.
That's what's up.
Tupac said, you can grow roads out of concrete. A lot of greatness has come out of the hood.
Yes, definitely. Dr. Gallen, we definitely love to have you on. You are, like you said, not just a friend to the show, family at this point. I know you got different things coming up, documentaries and books and student of the month. Like, we would love to have you back on, especially to break down different policies and news of the day. If you like to come back, I would love to, have you back again.
Well, we just shout out to I culminated some therapy. I just completed my latest book called Light Found in the Dark, a memoir.
Oh, okay.
It's 374 pages of that fire, I believe, because it's raw, it's authentic, and it's the truth. And it's really my experience as a superintendent. This was a book that was 15 years in the making, because it was 15 years ago almost. And sometimes you got to let things simmer and boil at the right time. And I'm pausing for effect, and I'm pausing for reflection in life, especially with social media, especially with the proclivities that we have for gossip in rumor and innuendo. If I had to give you a catchphrase, some people heard about it, some people wrote about it, some people talked about it, some people blogged about it, some people reported on it, but I lived it. I was there for the whole thing. So this is my story. This is my memoir about my experience. And it's a commentary on public education. It's a commentary on the criminal justice system. It's a commentary on the social dynamics that we face as Black men. It's a commentary about my journey, but it's something that culminates with no matter what happens, you can always find light after dark. So it's called Light Found in the Dark. After the darkness, if you believe, if you have faith, if you continue to get up and keep moving forward, no matter how dark it is, there can be light. Because the light is within you. You just have to find it and you have to show it and you have to shine. So I'm excited about that. And the third documentary we finished called Heart of the City. We have not released that yet. We're still making some tweaks, but we're excited about that. That's the third part of the documentary that gives the New Jersey story. It gives the run the school board, and it speaks to the work that I've done thus far, and it also really addresses some of the personal challenges that face me and my family, specifically my son, who I love. Shout out to my son. He's standing 10 toes down. We with him. Daddy always gonna be there with you, no matter what. God has the final say. So we got a couple of things moving forward, but in the meantime, let's work. Again, thank you all for having me. Anytime, that part.
Yes. Come on now. The Dr. Steve Gallen.
We appreciate you, King.
Thank you.
And
Wow.
that was a powerful show.
Yeah.
Dr. Steve, like just so many moments. I hope the people understand what we just witnessed.
Yeah. Raw, real. Shout out to him. I had, I didn't want to bring this up in the interview, but because it wasn't, but as you know, remember I told you we had the prom, and I had the guy who makes the prom suits, Miguel, the Miguel
Oh, okay.
collection, right?
Mhm.
And I was able to give, he was willing to give away 10 prom suits to people who really need it. And so I hooked up Miramar, and then I called, Dr. Gallen, and and just the fact of how excited, you know, him and his office were to be able to do that for kids in the district. You know what I mean? Like it be the little things. You understand what I'm saying? And it just like wanted me to like now build on that with him. Like wow, that could be like our thing. Like if I can get
Oh,
like 10 other designers and we can do 100 suits. You know what I mean? And kind of build on that. Um, but he kind of like puts you in that space where you want to just be a better person, you want to do better, you want to dig
yeah.
deeper, right?
No, for real. No. Like the way certain conversations that I've had with him offline, and I was having a difficult situation, and I didn't want to reveal this, because I feel like certain relationships I like to keep private, but this one was like really, really like I came to him and I was like, "Hey, doc, I'm having this issue," and he said something to me. He was like, "Know who you are." He was like, "You degreed, you have experience." He's like, "Don't let people play in your face. Be strong about your business." He's like, "It's value in it." And he was talking about High Low News, and he's been a supporter of it from like the very beginning. One of I think the first like elected official of his on his level, like that came on to High Low News. Like at the time when I was starting and I was still freelancing for the Miami Times and just other bigger outlets, people reach out to me and be like, "Can you get me on the radio? Can you get me on the beat? Or can you get me in the Times?" He was like, "No, I want to come on High Low News." And like
Wow.
that
Yeah.
cosign of that, like, just I feel like I started seeing people treat us differently. And so I was talking to him about that. And he was like reminding me, like, know who you are, like know who the F you
Mhm.
are, like for real, and stand on that. And even to our conversation when we asked a question about Black-owned firms and doing business with them. I'm glad he gave that update because I didn't know the exact number that it had increased to. Like you said, it could be
Right.
better,
12%. Yeah.
but he's even been like, Janae, go get certified with the school district, become a vendor. Like that's another way for to make money. So he be on it. Like when people say, oh, you helped me get a doctorate, like it ain't just, oh, I'm educating and it stopped there. It's like, oh, I'm gonna teach you some real stuff too, like stuff people may gatekeep. He'll be like, nah, like this what you do, like this how you get
Right.
there, this how you get this. So that's why you see that love when that's why he on t-shirts at Westfest. Them kids, because they feel people know genuine love.
So just a little bit of history. Westfest is a school reunion with the different years. Probably the biggest in South Florida, correct?
Yeah, like I think Westfest, and that's Miami Northwestern alumni picnic. So it's all classes from like the class of 60 something to class of 2020 something. And I think Miami Northwestern, I mean, I'm always throw Carroll City in there, but I think they beat Carroll City when it comes to participation. I know in years past they've had over 10,000 people out there. And so I think Carroll City probably hit that this year, but like Northwestern, and here's the other thing too, people don't understand that's a historic Black school. So
Yeah.
where Carroll City, I mean, Carroll City used to be a white school. That was not always a predominantly Black neighborhood. So some of those classes don't engage as much. So you kind of really start in the 80s, really, maybe late
Right. When it
70s
flipped.
with
Yeah.
where you start seeing a demographic shift. But Miami Northwestern, Miami Jackson, Booker T, like those are the historic um uh schools. And so Northwestern is still like the one that still is consistently like, because Jackson still like that demographic over there has changed. It's more Hispanic. Booker
Hispanic.
T took a pause at some point. It was a middle school, then it became a high school again. Like Northwestern was the consistent one. And I think it used to be Dorsey before it became Miami Northwestern, but it's the more consistent, longest lasting, like historically Black school in Miami-Dade County. So that's why their alumni is so deep. And here's the thing, if they still alive, them class of 1960, like if they're still here, they're still going to be representing Northwestern.
Yeah.
Like, a Northwestern bull because they're not going to let you forget about it.
And Dr. Gallen also mentioned that was his best, time served, as an educator, the 7 years he spent over there. So with that legacy and him being able to do so much over there, it just all makes sense, just a raw and real brother. I think that's more what we need in those types of positions of leadership. When y'all,
Wait,
don't forget this is brought to you by Just Vote. So like when y'all looking for them elected officials, you want it raw and real, to represent you because they understand what you go through. They talk about things and deal with things on a real perspective, things that actually affect you. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be able to pull up this interview and whatever he wants to run for next, because we ain't buying all that.
I know, but here's the thing, though.
That man got to run for something.
First of all, we gonna be begging him and crying like, please, you cannot leave us in these squares. But first of all, when he said, when you see people looking at other offices and not staying focused, like it's like they're not being effective in their space and not being focused in and out. And I thought that was really, really key and interesting because you hear people saying, oh, I want to be the mayor next, or I want to be the county commissioner next. And like he said, he's like, I just served my first, year of my current term. Like I
I'm
still
not
got
even
4
thinking
more
about that,
years.
right?
Yeah, it's
but the other part to that too is that they always say about politicians is that once you win the election, you start campaigning the next day. But I think when you do that as an elected official, it takes away too. You know what I'm saying? Like if you lost, like me, that's one thing. But if you got the seat, no, it's all good. I tell you, losing was a blessing. When you got when you sitting in the seat, you need to be focused on what you're doing for these people. Like you have the seat now, like, and I think that's why, and not to to go off the rails, but I think that's why people get frustrated with the the events, the parties, the bantering, and they just want the raw. And I think he presents that. I think he brings that raw and real approach that people could really appreciate.
You heard he said he wasn't gonna do that video if they try to make him do some corny stuff. Like I ain't dancing.
So we started laughing. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, listen, and I think that's why I can relate to him a lot because I'm on that same stuff. Like I'm cool. I rock with people, but I'm not gonna be that. I'm not shucking and jiving, and I'm not knocking anyone who does. You know what I mean? That's you, and that's how you want to rock and connect with people. People like some people like that. You know what I'm saying? So
People
that's
do,
cool.
but it seems like it needs balance right now. And
Right.
I think people are looking for that too. Like it's like, okay, we see certain people and they're probably like you said, that's cool and that's for our audience. But if it's too much of one thing, it lacks balance. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's why I remember when you ran for office, I was like, I think you need to connect with Dr. Gowan because y'all got similar energy. And I think that some insight that he can share with you,
And it was one
you'll
of the
really
best
receive it.
things that you did because I did connect with him and he gave me just like how he dropped gems today. He dropped some gems on me and predicted things to the point where we had a dollar bet based on something that he predicted, and I had to send him that dollar. Well, I respectfully sent
Wow.
him that dollar. You know what I'm saying? So just to talk to his brilliance and him just kind of studying certain things and just understanding, the outcomes of things, So yeah, that was yeah, he's dope.
I'm glad. I was really excited about this interview. It did not disappoint.
Mhm.
I'm happy we did this. And we were trying to, we first of all, when we first started this, Doc was already on the list to interview.
Yeah,
We
he
were just like,
was.
we gotta make sure the timing right. And this was so, like you said, God did this.
Mhm. I mean, it
That
was
was
just
divine timing.
I mean, this series has just been magical so far. We only 3 episodes in. We got 5 more for y'all. And we're gonna continue to line them up and knock them down, man. I just think it's just getting better and better. I just want to take a quick time to thank everyone who's stayed for the entire podcast. I know we're like a buck and a half in terms of time. You know what I'm
The
saying?
views were good this episode too. Thank y'all.
Yeah, seriously. So we really appreciate y'all tapping in and staying. I know your mom's was like, I'm in and out because I'm working, but no, we really appreciate it. We know everybody's schedule is busy, but we're trying to get as much information and you don't have to absorb it all now. That's the beauty of it. So although we on for an hour and a half, we may even talk for 10 more minutes, an hour, however long, you can always come back to it and we encourage you to share it. Like share it with people like these topics. Shout out to all the educators who are, watching right now and in this. I'll be remiss if I don't shout out, Crystal, as an
Hey,
educator. I learned so much about that field from her, just telling me
I saw her in
stories.
the comments
Yeah,
co-signing some of them points Dr. Gallo was making. Shout out to
for
Crystal.
real. And then all the other educators, the one who just got the doctorate, Dr. Davis, I think it is. Yep,
Mhm.
yeah, Dr. Ramon Davis. Thank you all, for being here and being a part of this.
Yes,
And shout out to
definitely.
your fiance with his $1 million questions. He like our third
he,
co-host.
he be with it. He be with it. But that's how
He
you
be-
can tell he works in media too, because
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
question be questioning.
So I just be on it, boy. He like, you know what I
No,
mean? We
definitely.
gotta get Todd this little seat somewhere.
I know. Look, PK, I want to check the timing of it, but this interview was so good. It's
Mhm.
making me think like we need to submit this for the Suncoast Emmy. Like this could in the interview portion. Like this could be
That
that.
part. That part.
Yeah, because
That part.
it was a lot of gems dropped. I got to check the timeline. I know the deadline is for this year's tonight, so I'm gonna check and see. But yeah, this
Yeah.
was good. This
Yeah,
was a good
man.
one.
And,
Look,
and, and, and Janae had on no hat for this one. I just want the audience to know.
so the inside is if y'all see me with a hat on, my hair is not done. But but look, you don't play with certain people, and I'm not playing with Dr. Gallon. I'm finna come with looking nice. But first of all, you got your suit and tie on too. Now I will say this: you do be dressed up for the podcast, but I did notice you was, extra snazzy tonight. Like we wanted to let our guests feel that we were really, really, in no shade to none of our other guests, but
nah,
this
just
one.
a little teasing, Janae. That's all.
Yeah, but also too because we scheduled this a little bit more in advance, like I had a little bit more time to prepare and
Yeah,
get ready and all that stuff. But I wanted to look nice too.
yeah. Hey, listen, I'm telling y'all now, guest we got for next week?
Oh yes. Do we wanna, or should we preview or no?
Nah, because we want
Okay.
to make sure that they go to our Instagram to see who the guest's gonna be. But I'm
Yes.
telling you right now, you don't want to miss next week. I mean, he is probably
That
just
part.
as good as Dr. Gallen, but on a different tip. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying? He's a fighter, feisty one. So it's
We
going
hitting the
down.
people back to back with
Oh
combos. We
my
got Doc and then the
gosh.
guest next week. Yes.
Yeah,
So good.
it's gonna be
So
real
good.
good,
I can't
man.
wait to make that announcement. That is going to be so good. Man, you know what,
Absolutely.
PK? You know, we were saying we're going to do our ad thing so we could,
Oh
you
yeah.
want to try to
Yeah,
do it
let's
now
do it now. All right.
with them watching us?
All right. 3, 2, 1. Yo, what up? It's Papa Keith, and I'm here, founder of Just Vote Period, also radio personality on 103.5 The Beat. And I have the honor and pleasure of having the most amazing co-hosts.
Hey, I'm your girl, Janae Tate, founder of High Low News and the co-host, the other half of That Part Podcast.
And listen, man, we do this show each and every Wednesday at 8 o'clock. We'd love for y'all to tap in. We'd also love to y'all to be an integral part of the show as well. You know, this is a love kind of, energy that we give to the show and supporting the show. But we would love your support of the show. So we're looking for people to sponsor the show. We're looking for people to connect with the show. So if you can please join us as we take things that are really important to you in our community and bring it to the forefront. And we deliver it in a very raw, unfiltered, and a way that's very, like Janae says, digestible, for everybody to pretty much understand. So if you're feeling this, man, join us at That Part Podcast 305. We love your support. You can please contact Janae Tate or myself, and we love to connect with you and have you be a part of the family. All right, we need you in order to do this. We've gone 3 series so far, independent, but we don't want to stay independent. I was talking I was interviewing a young lady the other day, an artist by the name of Tifa, and she has a song called I Want a Man, right? So I'm interviewing her. I'm like, you want a man? She's like, yeah. She's like, I'm tired of being an independent woman. I'm tired of doing everything. Like, I want a man. You know what I'm saying? I want to be courted. I want to be treated like a lady. I want somebody to be there for me. So we want that too with this podcast.
Yeah, we want a man to sponsor. No, I'm just kidding. Look, PK, you're absolutely right. And the show is a labor of love. It's a free podcast. You could go to thatpartpodcast305.com to get all the information. If you want to DM me or Papa Keith on social media to get more information on how to be a sponsor or advertiser, you could do that. But also to go to That Part Podcast 305 to get more information on how to possibly be a guest, show ideas, and of course to be an advertiser. All the information is there for you to connect with us. You could DM us as well on our Instagram page, That Part Podcast 305. And so if you want to connect with us and get more information, but definitely this is a show where we have people like Dr. Steve Gallen from the school board. We had Congresswoman McCormick last week. We have, different commissioners and city council people and from federal, state, and local coming on the show talking about information that you need to know. And of course, we mix in some hot topic and social issues as well. So you guys definitely want to check out That Part Podcast. And we appreciate y'all support as we grow this organically. I want y'all to see the process as we do this. This is ours. It's not just for me and PK. This is for the community.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for everybody who's been supporting from day one. All right. So, yeah, that's our spiel. I hope everyone enjoyed the show tonight. Again, please share it. Please have as many people as you can to, what's the number that we at right now with subscribers? Because we got to get our subscribers up to 300, right?
Yeah, I think for the first level monetization, I think we are at I think like 150. So
All
yeah,
right,
150
halfway
to
there.
go. Yeah,
All
we
right.
halfway there.
So please, if
So
you can get people to subscribe to our podcast, we'll really appreciate that directly on YouTube. Means a lot to us. And yeah, we'll see you amazing people next week, right?
definitely look at the screen. You can see how to follow us on different social media platforms. And of course, thank y'all for tuning in. That part.